Hello and welcome to the Pete Braley Show. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you're new to the show, just let me explain a little bit here. We try to shine the spotlight on some of the people that make our life more enjoyable here in Greater New Bedford and southeastern Massachusetts. So if you know of someone that you think we should have on, please let me know about it. You can message me on Facebook. I'm also on X. It's at Pete Braley. And you can email me at thepetebraleyshow.com. That's the Pete Braley Show at gmail.com. That's the Pete Braley Show at gmail.com. Our guest this week has been a long time in the making, trying to get him to be available. He is the pastor of the Whaling City Catholic Community. Father Michael Racine joins us. I am so glad we connect.
It's a pleasure.
Of course, your phone could go off at any time, right?
It will. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Pete.
Now, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, the hardest working man in show business. This has got to be the hardest working man in the God business that I know, or at least you're one of them.
Yeah.
How many parishes? Is that the correct? How many parishes do you serve?
I have three.
Three.
I have Holy Name of Sacred Heart. I have St. Lawrence, which is my home parish where I grew up as a kid, as well as St. Francis of Assisi here in New Bedford, as well as doing the fire chaplaincy for New Bedford and Fall River.
And Fall River, right. And I noticed the other day, because we're friends on Facebook, I noticed the other day you said that you were covering some hospital hours.
Yeah, I was covering St. Luke's for the chaplain's day off. We take turns covering his days off so that the hospital is covered.
Right, right. Here's a recent post on his Facebook page. Good morning, Mass at 7:30 at HNS Holy Family of Sacred Heart and live streamed, 9 a.m. at St. Francis, 10 a.m. at HNSH with Father Powell, 11:30 a.m. at St. Lawrence, baptism at 12:30 at St. Lawrence. Have a good day and stay safe.
That was my Sunday, yes. That baptism that I did was a joy, and they're all joys, obviously, but this was a graduate of our school who was in ninth grade, who himself approached me at our awards night last year and said, Father Mike, I'm ready to be baptized. I see him in church every week with his mom.
Wow.
And I never knew that he wasn't baptized.
And how old, roughly?
Ninth grade now.
Okay.
And he asked for it, and we've been planning this for quite some time, and we finally had the opportunity to celebrate the sacrament last Sunday.
That's
great kid, great kid.
And that schedule doesn't count the other times. You have office hours, like any priest or minister would, and then the funerals. In fact, that's one of the reasons we've scheduled and rescheduled.
Because I was on a roll of
And when
funerals.
we scheduled for today, you told me, you said, providing there are no funerals, I'll be there. So
nothing on the board yet. It's been busy.
Let's go back, because I'm always fascinated with people's stories and how they get to be where they are. You were born and raised in the area?
Born and raised in New Bedford.
Okay.
Graduated from New Bedford Public Schools. With the exception of high school, I went to New Bedford Voc.
Okay.
And I am not the only priest that graduated from New Bedford Voc.
Okay.
Father Martin Gomes, Sacred Heart Father, is the first. And he always tells me I'm the original. And we always joke, because whenever we see each other, we say, well, we can say we're the only two priests that graduated from New Bedford Voc. Not often you get a priest from New Bedford Voc, but
what was your shop? What did you?
Graphic arts.
Graphic arts.
Yeah, I graduated in 1983.
When you were a kid, what did you want to be? Did you want to be a priest?
Well, actually, no.
Okay.
I always thought about being a teacher, going into broadcasting, or firefighter. God works in strange ways.
Okay, so then I have to ask, how did you get here?
Well, I think obviously from a good Catholic upbringing with my parents and my siblings, I grew up at St. Lawrence Parish in New Bedford, and Father Driscoll, Father O'Day were there for years. And they were just a good influence. And there's a little story. One Christmas Eve, they were doing some stuff, getting prepared for the Christmas Eve Mass, and they couldn't get all the tall candles lit on the back altar. So my father kind of nudged me, he says, go give him a hand. I was the sacristan within the next 5 minutes for the next 8 years before I went into seminary.
Oh, wow.
So I got myself a little sacristan's job helping out around the church. Father Driscoll was so grateful. He was very kind. Father O'Day was very, very grateful to me, and it just turned into a vocation.
Do you remember when your mind started to turn toward the
Probably
priesthood?
the junior year of high school.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a lot of support from my parents and even some of my classmates. They thought it was kind of interesting. And every year now we've been doing a little memorial mass for our graduating class at St. Lawrence in August.
Oh, wow.
And because they know the priest, so they can book it. So it's kind of nice. Yeah.
You mentioned siblings. What do you have?
I have 2 brothers and a sister. I'm the middle child.
You're the middle child.
I'm the middle
Okay.
child.
And when you first decided on this venture, how'd your brothers act?
Oh, he only works on Sundays. I still get razzed,
Yeah.
but very, very supportive.
Yeah.
They know that they're proud of it. Even my older brother, he said to me when I think I turned 50, he says, you've got the respect of your peers, of your parishioners, and your brother priest. And we know you love what you do,
Right.
and we're proud of you. So when Big Brother says that's good.
Yeah, it does.
A couple of weeks from now, I'm going to be baptizing my great niece.
Oh, cool.
So which is great. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's
I know-
the fun stuff.
I know there are many ministers or maybe priests also that come to this later in life.
Yes, second career vocations.
But
Yeah.
for you, it was right from the
It was
start.
right from the start.
Right.
Yeah.
But you still have a connection to being a firefighter because
Absolutely.
being a chaplain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I replaced Monsignor Harrington in Fall River when I was assigned at St. Bernard's in Assonet. Maybe about 2 months before he passed, he called me in and he said, Mike, he says, I'm going to start grooming you for this. He says, I'm not going to be here. He knew he was very, very sick. And he wanted to make sure that somebody was going to take the role. And I had always expressed interest in it. And he called me in one day and he asked me to formally take it with the approval of the bishop. And Chief Lynch at the time was very happy because he knew that he wasn't going to have to go out and find a fire chaplain.
Right.
And that wasn't actually my first time around, because in my very first assignment, I was in Fall River at Notre Dame, and I was their fire chaplain for 2 years before I got transferred to Dartmouth.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like come back to you.
I was going to ask you if you've always been assigned in the area. And
I have.
Is that a choice? Do you have to
No,
request that? Or?
this is all up to the bishop, where he assigns the priest. I've been very fortunate. All of my assignments have been in the Fall River, New Bedford area.
Right.
Yeah.
Back to the chaplain for the fire department and for New Bedford and Fall River.
Yep.
How does that differ from being just a parish priest? I would assume you've got different challenges.
Yeah. You don't know what's coming. In the
And
parish,
it could be 3 in the morning.
it can be 3 in the morning. We've had some serious fires in both roles as chaplain, Fall River and New Bedford. And unfortunately, we've had tragedies of death.
Right.
And that's where I kind of come in. Usually when it goes to a second alarm fire, that's when I get called
Right.
from dispatch. And
You're meeting people on their worst day.
You're meeting people on their worst day, and you're there to support the firefighters.
Yeah.
I don't interfere. I just stand back. They know I'm there. When I get to the fire scene, I check in with whoever's in charge, whether it be the chief or a district chief. They know I'm there, and I just kind of walk around. A few weeks ago, we had a mill fire here in the city on a Friday night. And that's what I do. I just check in and make sure everybody's okay.
You have a pretty interesting story about, 4 days after your ordination?
4 days after my ordination.
So this goes back to what year was it?
1995.
1995.
I was ordained June 10th,
Okay.
95, and June 11th we had my first Mass of Thanksgiving at St. Lawrence. And about a week prior to that, Bishop O'Malley at the time was at St. Lawrence for graduation for the kids. And we were having lunch, and he said to me, "Oh, are you ready for your ordination next week?" We're all excited because there were 5 in the class that year. And he said, "Well, something else is going to happen." And we all kind of looked at each other because nobody knew, except I think Father Driscoll knew, because he obviously was going to affect St. Lawrence, that he announced that Mother Teresa was coming to New Bedford on June 14th. And we were all gathered at lunch, and we just kind of looked at each other. "Oh, this is exciting." Very exciting. And it was. It was. And of course, I hadn't started my first assignment yet, so I was helping out at St. Lawrence. And I had the morning mass that morning. And you never have 150 people at daily mass, but they were all trying to get a good seat for Mother Teresa.
Oh,
of course, the police came in and did a clean sweep and everything, but it was an exciting day because that was where everything was happening. You know, Mayor Rosemary Tierney was mayor at the time. She was greeting her at the airport. And that afternoon, we had a mass at St. Lawrence. The church was packed. It was by ticket only, but I think a few people got in. And then outside, you know, it was an overflow crowd outside. And it was a very, very humid day.
Oh,
I remember it like it was. And at the end of Mass, Bishop O'Malley invited her to come up. And because she's very short. She's about 4'5" maybe.
And you are?
And 6'2".
6'2".
So she got up and she spoke to all of the priests and all who were in the church, and they were speakers outside. She had this little index card in her hand, and she didn't even look at it. Wow. She just spoke from the heart. And her opening words were, "God is love." You don't forget that. And she just shared from her heart her ministry. And at the end of about maybe 20, 25 minutes, she just walked away, and everybody just stood up and, you know, applauded her. You know, there's a little plaque in the very first pew of St. Lawrence where she sat. And when I left my assignment in Assonet to come to New Bedford, my going away present was a very beautiful statue of Mother Teresa that is in St. Lawrence Church right now.
Oh, nice.
So after the Mass, I was invited by the nuns to go across the street. They had to do their holy hour, and they needed a presider. And I was, you know, 4 days ordained, a little nervous. And we were sitting in their chapel, and it was humid as anything. And we'll never forget the blue sweater that she always wore.
Right.
You know, there were holes in it. You know, she was wrapped up in her sweater, and she just stood and she just sat in prayer for an hour. And I did the prayer service. And of course, you know, I was nervous. I
would think
was
so, yeah.
presiding in front of Mother Teresa, but it was a great honor. It's something you never forget. And at the end, she asked me for her blessing, and she gave me a blessing as well.
I read that in the notes.
Yeah.
That she asked you for a blessing.
Yeah, she asked me for
What
a
was
blessing.
going through your mind? I would be. She's asking me.
It was just a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
You never forget it. You never forget that.
Wow.
Yeah, and of course, you know, the picture of that is, you know, I had hair back then.
Yeah. Didn't we all?
But it was a day that we never forgot. You know?
Did that influence you going forward? I mean.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll never forget her words to be a good priest. Do your best.
Yeah.
That's what she shared. And it's so awesome to share that with kids in the school, because our school is named after her.
Right.
And
that's another one of your jobs,
that's
right?
another one of my jobs, is co-chaplain of the school. So it's every year on September 5th, we have a memorial mass for the anniversary of her death at St. Lawrence. And after that, this year, we had a school mass as well. And I preached and I shared with the kids, you know, what this day was all about and what their school and who this school is named
I was going to ask you if there were moments in your career that stick out in your mind. I would assume that it's kind of hard to answer that question because there must be so many.
Oh, there's so many, good and bad, as far as you know, happy moments, as well as, you know, tragedies. You know, I've I've celebrated so many beautiful weddings and baptisms, and to be with the kids on their first communion days and confirmation, and then the tragedies.
Yeah.
And I see that as fire chaplain. We were to celebrate a firefighter's funeral. We had one a few months ago here in the city, and it was very, very sad.
I wrote a column once because my wife is a paramedic, and I wrote a column once about who cares for the caregivers. And you have been there for so many people through some terrible times. That must take a toll on you. And
Yes, it gets emotional.
yeah. Do you have people that help you?
We
you have someone you
we
can turn
kind
to?
of vent off each other as priests a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. You got to have some good priest friends where you
Right.
can go out for supper with, just share stories, and just you have your family too,
Yeah.
and that's the hardest part is separating the time, because in a position like this, when I was hospital chaplain, at St. Luke's for 4 years, I was on Thanksgiving, I was on Christmas,
Right.
and I remember my first Christmas, I think I tried to go to my parents' house 5 times, and it just
Didn't happen.
I gave up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it just, you got to have a good support group.
Because I think so many of us, when a crisis happens, we turn to our minister or to our priest.
Sure.
But I've often wondered, who do you turn to?
We turn to each other.
Yeah.
And it's good. And I have a good friendship with priests. Go out for dinner or go to somebody's rectory on a Saturday night for dinner. And it just, it's good to be with each other.
Great.
Yeah.
Another thing that I wanted to ask you about was how attendance was at your services. And I asked that because it seems to me, maybe it was happening before then, but it seems to me when COVID hit and we couldn't go to church, I've read articles where people fell out of the habit of going to church.
They have.
So are you struggling also
We struggle
because
with
I know
that.
in my church, it's like some people just didn't come back.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the effects, I think, of the negative way of live stream, because people have just become attached to it
Right.
a little bit. And it's become, I call it a crutch, because, I can watch it on a live stream. I mean, the live stream there is for the people who can't go out.
Right.
and-
Can't
and,
travel.
travel.
Right.
Or you're sick, and it's there. But I think the last year and a half, I've seen a nice rebound.
Oh, good.
And it's so happy to say that. On an average weekend, with the 3 parishes, with 5 masses, we see between 650 and 700 people. So that's 650, 700 people going to church.
That's good. Yeah.
Both adults and families. I always say, if I ever take my 7:30 mass on a Sunday morning away, they'll never talk to me again.
Now, how many services do you lead on a Sunday?
I usually do 4 of the 5.
4 out of the 5.
Yep.
Now,
because we
I
have
got
Go
I
ahead.
got to ask you, do you have 4 different homilies?
Nope.
Okay. I appreciate the
Although
honesty.
this past weekend, and I got to give Jim Marshall credit, because I see Jim a lot at my 4 o'clock mass, and he shared with me a story that went very well with what the scriptures were about. And after 4 o'clock mass, I went and I Googled the story. I said, this is perfect. And but no, I usually give the same homily. It gets shorter.
Get shorter by the end of the day. But I mean, for anyone saying, "Oh, he just repeats the same thing," it's a different audience.
And I don't
right?
read mine.
Oh, really?
No, I usually preach from the center aisle, because I like to be with the people.
How, as someone who's sitting here with notes,
Right.
how do you do? It's just
You got to just formulate it, and
Okay.
and that's what Friday night. Things are done in the office. You can look at the readings and start figuring out. Okay, this goes this, and your 4 o'clock mass is your first shot right there, and
wow, you do it without
but
notes.
I do it without. I've used notes maybe half a dozen times because I've had to. But even for funerals, I want to be with the families. I go down to the center aisle. I'll take a piece of paper with me because there's things about them
Right.
that I like to share. And I think it's very important that we're speaking about their loved one.
I did not
you
know
know.
that. I'm
Yeah.
impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very seldom do I preach from the pulpit.
I was going to ask, in your free time, if you have any, what do you like to do?
Sleep.
One thing I've noticed in my own, with my own minister and my own church is that you can't really have a set schedule, right?
Yeah.
You can't really, I mean, you can try to maybe take Monday and Tuesday
Yeah,
off or
it
whatever,
doesn't
however
work.
you structure it.
Right.
But if a crisis happens on
Right.
your day off, you're there,
Right.
right?
And Friday, unfortunately, Friday's usually my day off, but it's usually a prime day for a funeral. And I don't want to say no to the people.
Oh, yeah.
But when I can get away, it's nice. I do have a little place I can go and just kind of chill out a little bit and relax.
And then how many, I mean, I've been to a number of presentations or what, they always ask you to come up and give the invocation.
Yeah, I think I'm permanent in New Bedford for Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and but I do it because I love it. I love it. I like to be with the people.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that there's a presence of prayer at these very special days, Memorial Day, and the Memorial Day one is special for me because it's right in the area where I grew up as a kid, in the Klasky Park.
Oh, right.
I grew up right across the street, as a kid.
So you played at Klasky?
So I played Klasky. Oh yeah, I played.
Wow.
We were sledding there as kids and played ball there, and oh sure.
One of our first apartments when I got married was just behind the Parker Street School,
Yeah,
and I used to love to go to the park and just sit
we
there and have a
we
cup
lived
of coffee.
right on the
or-
corner of Pope and State.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so the parade for us as kids always came there,
Right.
and we were in Cub Scouts, so we were always part of it. And then we always ended up in our backyard and serving hot dogs and hamburgers to the Cub Scouts. So it was a lot of fun.
We are entering an extremely busy time with that Advent coming. Do I dare ask, does your schedule accelerate?
Not too bad. It's not as bad as last year because Christmas is in the middle of the week this year, and
okay.
Christmas Eve is not a Sunday like it was last year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That can
so-
get crazy.
Yeah,
with
last year we
multiple
had
services.
fourth Sunday of Advent for the morning and started Christmas Eve,
Wow.
4 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, we we encourage the people to try to do things as well, and do a little Advent penance service before Christmas. But Advent isn't as bad as Lent. Lent is busier.
Okay.
Lent is busier.
Yeah.
There's something always going on.
What is your favorite time of the church year?
Lent,
Okay.
because it's longer than Advent, gives us a couple of extra weeks, and it's a time where you see people making those extra efforts to come back to church for Mass or devotions, that we do during the season of Lent. On a Wednesday night during Lent, we do Stations of the Cross, and we average between 85 and 100 people on a Wednesday night.
Wow.
I am so happy to see that.
Yeah.
And that energizes us when you see that, when you try to put things on and people show up.
Has your job gotten more difficult over the past,
Oh, it's changed.
what would you say, 10 years?
Probably 10, yeah. We've become more than priest.
How so?
We're running, we're keeping up buildings. I have a facilities person, but everything still has to, come through me, and I have to know about things.
Right.
We're doing maintenance on buildings and making sure that the lots are getting plowed and sanded and things like that. It's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always say there are days when I can just be a priest. It's wonderful.
Instead of all the other things.
Instead of
yeah.
the other things.
And have you found that just the state of the world and relationships and social media?
It's become very hard with the world and social media.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we read so many negative things. I was reading some comments. The United States Catholic bishops are meeting in Baltimore this week, and I was just reading, some of the things that were going on at their meetings, and then people have to put comments that don't even apply to it. and it makes it sad, you know. And unfortunately, we've been through a rough time in ministry, and it's put a downgrade on us. It's hard to go out and do things, but when we do those things, like, you know, the Memorial Day and the Veterans Day, to give a prayer, never any negative response. People are grateful.
Right.
I found it particularly this past Monday. There was a nice crowd down at the library.
The Veterans Day.
The Veterans Day, and you know, when you end your prayer and you say amen and you hear a response, it was nice.
Yeah.
You know, but there are the negative. You know, we've been through a rough time.
Yeah.
Been through a rough time. It started when I was in the seminary, but it didn't stop me from becoming.
I was going to say,
priest.
did you ever have doubt? Did you ever think
It
maybe
was hard.
this isn't
It
for
was
me?
it was
or-
very hard during my years as a seminarian, because unfortunately everything was starting to break out, and it affected my home parish, and you know, he was declared innocent. We knew from the very day that he was innocent, but it was hard,
Yeah.
and it's still hard, because it's just the negativity, and it's hard to be a priest, a minister, a rabbi, you know. And I've been very fortunate in the city to have a good connection with other religious. You know, the rabbi, I went to Teferet, the Israel Synagogue, a few years ago. They had their 100th anniversary, and I was so proud to be there as representing the church. And you know, I'm very good friends with Dave Lemer, you know, from the city, and it's nice to have a nice connection with these people.
And it's nice that there doesn't seem to be a competition between.
Right.
It's
No.
like there's enough for
We're
everybody.
working together. There's enough for everybody.
Yeah.
There's enough.
I'm so glad we could finally do this. And your phone, I don't think it ever went
Did
off.
not go off. It did not go off. You brought me good luck, Pete.
There you go. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Pete.
Father
It
Mike,
was a
right?
pleasure.
Everybody calls you Father Mike.
Everybody calls me Father Mike.
Yeah.
It's easy. Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll see you again at some function or
Always
whatever.
a pleasure.
Yeah.
It is a pleasure.
All right.
Thank
Father
you.
Michael Racine, our guest on the Pete Braley Show today. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for tuning in. As always, we leave you with a thought for the day. We try to wrap up every show with something that is either positive or might make you think a little bit. There was a sermon recently in my church. The minister, I went up to her afterwards and I said, "You made me think on a Sunday." Oh. But our thought today comes from Susie Kassem, who once said, "Doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will." Don't doubt yourself.
Don't doubt
Believe in
ourselves.
yourself. Right. All right, no matter what, until next time, make it a great day.